The world watched last February 24th as President Vladimir Putin's Russian military invaded Ukraine. Since that day, attacks have killed more than 8,000 Ukrainian civilians. That's according to the United Nations. 14 million Ukrainians are either displaced from their homes or have no homes to return to. Millions have left the country and have no idea when or if they'll ever be able to go back. Several of those families are safe tonight, right here in southeastern North Carolina. They've gotten help to go from war to Wilmington and begin their new lives.
Each person had their plans for future life, and nobody was expecting that something will change like this. And life was wonderful.
Olga Lodiana had a good life in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Raising her two sons, Mikhailo and Timofey, working as a surgeon in the city where she grew up. Until
there were rockets, there were bombs, and it was really, really bad situation. And I understood that that it won't be better. It will be only worse and worse, and I should change this.
As Russia's military began its advance into Ukraine from the south and the east, Olga took her sons and escaped to the west, joining millions of people who feared for their lives.
It was really, really panic everywhere, and parents took the children, the animals, and there were a lot of cars on the road. There were huge lines, and everybody was in bad condition.
Packed in the family car, searching for places to sleep along the way, Olga and her sons began a 5-day trip through Europe to Spain, where they stayed until a friend arranged a flight to the United States. They ended up in Wilmington after connecting online with Dan Parks. His Wilmington East Rotary has helped more than a dozen Ukrainian families.
15 Ukrainians we're working with right now, but Welcome.us partners with Rotary in bringing Ukrainians over here through Uniting Ukraine for a 2-year humanitarian parole.
Dan put Olga in touch with Church World Service, and the group helped find the family an apartment. She's working, but not as a surgeon. Her job is cleaning homes. She's missing medicine and Ukraine, but happy in this new life. Happy she and her boys are alive.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay because I understand that we have here, it's not dangerous here. My kids go to school by themselves. It's wonderful. It won't be any attack from some enemy, and it won't be any rockets. And so only this thought makes you happy, that here is absolutely a secure life.
Now, Olga told me her big concern is solving the questions about her documents. The temporary status for her and her sons is only good for 18 months. She hopes to get it extended and one day hope they all become U.S. citizens. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the programs that helped relocate the Lodiana family here, we have links inside this story on our website. Now, while Olga and her family escaped Ukraine at the start of the war, 2 other families endured months of attacks before they escaped to safety. And once again, Dan Parks and his Wilmington East Rotary played a big role in that effort. You'll meet these families and hear their story tomorrow night on WECT News at 6.